Take everything that keeps you alive, your phone, the house around you, the store a few minutes down the road, stocked by ships and trucks, and 100,000 strangers you will never meet. Take away every person who has ever fed you. Now drop what is left, just you, into the world as it was 30,000 years ago. Give yourself 1 week. You would not make it today 3. And the reason is not the one you are already reaching for. You are picturing the obvious killers. A big cat moving through the dark. A river you read wrong. The cold sliding into your chest on the first clear night. Those would come for you. But they are not the deep reason you would die. And the deep reason is something your ancestors knew in their bones, and you have forgotten so completely that by the end of this you will find it hiding inside your own ordinary afternoon. Here is what should stop you. That world, the one that kills you in 72 hours, was not a wasteland your ancestors barely clung to. They lived in it easily for more than 300,000 years. This was simply home. In 1963, an anthropologist named Richard Lee walked into the Kalahari desert to find out how hard that home really was. He lived among the Kung hunter-gatherers, doing roughly what humans had done for almost the entire human story. And he did something simple. He counted their hours, how long they actually worked to eat. The number came back around 15 to 20 hours a week. Sit with that, to feed themselves in a desert, with no store and no machine and no map. Your ancestors spent maybe 2 or 3 hours a day. The rest was shade talk, children, sleep through the worst of the heat. The people you were taught to call primitive had solved survival so completely they were finished before the afternoon. So hold the contradiction in your hands. A week out there kills you. For them, it was done by lunch, which means the thing standing between you and your own ancestors is not muscle. It is not toughness. You could be the strongest person you know, and that desert would still close over you inside a week. What they had is far stranger than strength. And 2 men lost in the Australian outback are about to show you exactly what it was. Start small, start with fire. On your first cold afternoon, you know the trick, you rub sticks together. 2, you have watched someone do it on a screen, so you find a stick and a flat scrap of wood and you spin until your palms blister, and an hour later you are holding a warm stick, not an ember. A warm stick and 2 ruined hands. Because pulling fire out of nothing is not a skill, it is a dozen skills stacked on each other. Wood dry all the way through. One kind for the spindle, a softer kind for the board. A notch cut at the exact angle to catch the dust and feed a coal. Tinder shredded fine and shaped into a nest, and held ready before the coal even exists, because a coal lives for seconds and forgives nothing. Miss 1 step, get nothing. Nobody in prehistory was born knowing those steps. They were shown across years by someone who was shown. By someone who was shown you were not shown. So on night 1 you sleep without fire, and the coal begins its slow arithmetic on your body. Day 2, you need water. There is a stream and it looks clean, and it is crawling with things that will empty you out from both ends. Inside a day and leave you too weak to walk. There is no stream, and you spend the daylight hunting for one, and you fail because you cannot read the land the way it must be read, the dip where water hides, the green that means a spring. By dusk your head is pounding and your thinking has gone thick and slow. Day 3, hunger takes the wheel, and this is where the land turns from hard to lethal. Everything green around you is a question with a hidden answer. This berry feeds you, that one, almost identical, stops your heart. This root is a meal, that one, a day of retching. You cannot tell them apart. Your ancestors could, instantly, because someone taught them, because someone long before them died finding out and the group remembered. And even the food that is safe will kill you if you prepare it wrong. 2 men learned that with their lives. In 1860, a large, well-funded expedition set out to cross Australia from south to north. Its leaders, Robert Burke and Wills, were not soft men. They had camels, months of planning, more supplies than they could carry. On the way back, at a place called Cooper Creek, they ran low on food in country where the Yandruwandha people had lived well for countless generations. The Yandruwandha helped them. They shared a food made from a fern called Nardoo, ground to flour and baked into cakes. Burke and Wills copied it. They gathered Nardoo, they ate it by the plateful, and they kept starving. Wills wrote it in his own journal, baffled. His belly was full and his body was eating itself. Here is why. Nardoo is loaded with an enzyme called thiaminase, and thiaminase destroys thiamine. Vitamin B1. The thing your nerves and muscles need to turn food into energy. The Yandruwandha prepared Nardoo in a specific way, wetting and processing it so the enzyme spent itself on the plant. Instead of the person, Burke and Wills skipped the step they did not understand. So they sat by a creek, eating steadily, and quietly died of a poison folded inside their own meals. Full stomachs, hollow bodies. The anthropologist Joseph Henrich tells this story in his book The Secret of Our Success, and he sets a dozen more beside it. Strong, equipped European explorers dropped into lands where local people had thrived for thousands of years, dying anyway, starving on ground that was feeding others all around them. That is the real reason you would die out there, not because the land is empty, because the land is a locked door, and no one ever handed you the key. The key has a name, and it is not intelligence in raw problem solving. You are probably sharper than any single person in that ancient band. The key is accumulated knowledge, 10,000 years of trial and error, the of someone eating the wrong root and dying so everyone after them lived. Of one small improvement to a blade passed hand to hand across 100 generations until it cut clean. No single mind builds that from scratch, not yours, not theirs. It is far too large to fit in one skull, so it was never kept in one skull. It lived in the group, and it was poured into each child slowly year after year. How many years? 2 anthropologists, Hillard, Kaplan, and Kim Hill, spent much of their lives with foraging peoples, the Aceh in Paraguay, and the Hadzu in Chak, watching them hunt and gather and weighing what they carried home. Chisa, and they found the fact that should end the fantasy for good. A hunter-gatherer does not break even until adulthood. A child takes far more from the group than it gives back. So does a teenager. So does a strong young person in their late teens. They are still learning. The skill to read a track and dust, to know which of 1,000 plants is dinner and which is a slow death, to find water in a dry riverbed, to bring down an animal that is fighting to live, does not peak until the mid-30s. It takes about 20 years to become a competent forager. 20 years, you have 7 days, and even that undersells what one ordinary prehistoric person carried in their head and their hands. In 1991, 2 hikers in the Alps found a body bleeding out of the melting ice. He had lain there roughly 5,300 years. They called him Otzi no King, just a man alone in the mountains, who died there. Look at what was on him. A copper axe, the end of a long chain of skills that runs from rock to blade, a bow he was still shaping, and 14 different plants. Tools worked from at least 6 kinds of wood, each chosen for a different job because he knew which tree gave hardness, and which gave spring, and which gave a slow burn. And threaded on a leather cord 2 lumps of a shell fungus called birch pole apor, which carries a quiet antibacterial punch. When scientists opened his gut, they found the eggs of a parasite whipworm. A man 5,000 years ago with no word for bacteria and no idea a parasite existed, seems to have been carrying his own medicine for the thing living inside him. That is the baseline. That is what an average person out there simply walked around knowing, not a genius, a normal member of a group that had been stacking knowledge since before anyone could remember. So here is the truth the fantasy always hides from you. You would not die in prehistory because you are weak. You would die because survival was never something a human did alone. It was never in the muscles. It lived in the space between people, in the knowledge one generation pressed into the next, in the band that fed you and taught you and kept you breathing. Pull any single person out of that web and the wild swallows them. Take one of those kung hunters, lift them out of their people and everything their people knew, set them down as a blank newborn mind in a strange land, and given a wide enough gap they would struggle too. The lone survivor who makes it on grit alone is a bedtime story. It has never once been true, and you are still living inside that same truth. You just cannot see the web anymore because it has grown so vast it turned invisible. You have never once fed yourself, not really. Every meal you have ever eaten came down a line of hands that reaches back through the driver, the farmer, the person who bred the seed, all the way to someone in a desert deciding which plant was safe to hand a child. The anthropologist Sarah Hurdy showed that even the way you were raised, tended as a baby by more hands than your mother's alone, is an ancient inheritance. The mark of a species that has always shared the weight of keeping its young alive. You were never self-made. No human ever has been. The store, the power grid, the strangers, All of it is the same old web your ancestors lived inside, only scaled up so far that you stop feeling it holding you. So take away the phone and the house and the strangers and drop what is left of you into the world of 30,000 years ago. You would die that week. And now you know the real reason, not because you are soft, because a human truly alone is the one thing prehistory never made and never meant to. You were not built to survive by yourself. You still aren't. If the world you came from feels a little closer now, that's exactly the point. Subscribe, and every week we'll uncover another piece of who you used to be.